It's a new year, and that can only mean one thing: new hardware. And NVIDIA is first out of the gate with its latest round of refreshes, the 4070 Super. A slightly cut down version of the 4070 Ti, these 4070 Supers promise to give similar performance for a lower price tag, with an MSRP of $600. Did NVIDIA do enough to make it an easy recommendation? And when comparing partner cards, are there any that stand out, or should you just stick with the Founders Edition? Taking a quick look at our test system, it's new for 2024, and we're now using an Intel Core i9-14900K on the EVGA Z790 Dark. That's paired with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, 32GB of DDR5 7200 memory, Windows 11 Professional with VBS enabled, and the latest press drivers from NVIDIA. Moving over into the performance metrics, and all of these charts are 100%ed at the 4070 Super FE, so the vanilla Founders Edition is the benchmark for everything. And so we can see here, looking at all the different partner cards, that they're all pretty close to each other, though there are some ones that are faster and some that are a tiny bit slower. The Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super Aurorus Master is 4% faster than the RTX 4070 Super FE, and the Gainward RTX 4070 Super Ghost is about 1% slower. All the cards still trail the RTX 3090 Ti, 4070 Ti, and the AMD RX 7900 XT is about 15% faster than the reference model. That does mean, though, that the RTX 4070 Super is more similar to the Ti model than it is to the vanilla 4070, and it has a comfortable lead on the RX 7800 XT. Enabling ray tracing does shake up the chart a little bit, and now all cards are about even with the RX 7900 XTX, though the positioning of the NVIDIA cards in this chart don't really change all that much, and the 4070 Super is still in between the 3090 Ti and the 4070. Bumping up the resolution to 1440p does change the chart a little bit, and the effects of the 12GB of VRAM are starting to show. Now the 4070 Super only matches the RTX 3090, which has 24GB of VRAM, and while it roughly keeps pace with the RTX 4070 Ti, the RTX 3090 Ti does pull a little bit further ahead and now is 11% faster. All the slower cards, though, do roughly keep their order in line, with the extra memory of the RX 7800 XT not really making a big difference at this resolution. Quickly looking at the minimum FPS at 1440p, and the RTX 4070 Super is good for about 95 FPS, which is definitely better than the 83 FPS of the 4070 and a little bit below the 4070 Ti's 102 FPS. It's still a pretty strong showing for a mid-range card, though you would need to lower some settings or the resolution if you wanted to really make use of your high refresh rate monitor. Increasing the resolution to 4K doesn't really change the story from 1440p all that much, with all the slower cards staying put, and really the only big change being with the 3090 and 3090 Ti, which now stretch their legs with their 24GB of VRAM to being 8 and 22% faster than the reference model. The fact that cards like the RX 6900 XT and the RX 7800 XT didn't gain too much performance at these higher resolutions with their bigger 16GB of VRAM does show that the 4070 Super is pretty well equipped right now with its smaller 12GB of VRAM, but that might change over time. Up until now, the pecking order of all the partner cards has been roughly the same between all the different performance charts we've looked at, but that does begin to change when we start looking at power consumption. And this card being an RTX 4070 Ti, but cut down for cost savings, it's no surprise that it does use less power than the RTX 4070 Ti, with the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super Aurorus Master being the most power hungry at 246 watts while gaming. It was the fastest 4070 Super card in our testing, followed closely by the Palit RTX 4070 Super Jetstream, so them being the top two cards in power consumption does at least make sense. The vanilla RTX 4070 Super Founders Edition comes in at 218 watts, roughly tying it with the RX 6700 XT and the ARC A750. with the Gainward RTX 4070 Super Ghost being the most efficient at 213 watts. But all that power needs to go somewhere, and that's usually offset by fan noise. And in this regard, the ASUS RTX 4070 Super Tough does super well, at least in its quiet BIOS, at only 25.2 dBA, being the quietest of the cards we tested. That's followed closely by the Zotac RTX 4070 Super Trinity at 28.8 dBA, the ASUS RTX 4070 Super Dual in the quiet BIOS at 29 dBA, and then with its normal BIOS, the ASUS RTX 4070 Super Tough at 29.1. The two fastest cards, the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super Aurorus Master with its quiet BIOS and the Palit RTX 4070 Super Jetstream, do have pretty good showings at 31.8 and 32.3 dBA respectively. The ASUS RTX 4070 Super Dual in its normal BIOS at 33.4 dBA. The surprisingly middle of the pack RTX 4070 Super Founders Edition at 35.1, and the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super Aurorus Master with its normal BIOS at 36.7. This does leave the two slowest cards, the PNY RTX 4070 Super Verto and the Gainward RTX 4070 Super Ghost, at the bottom at 38.1 and 39.3 dBA. Which isn't too bad since it's basically tied with the RX 7900 XTX at 39.2 dBA, but still a far cry from the quietest card. Normalizing all the cards for noise level and power consumption does highlight the efficiency of the cooler designs, and in this case, the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super Aurorus Master takes the cake at 54.5 C. The ASUS RTX 4070 Super Tough coming in a very close 56.5 C, and going down all the way to the opposite end, the PNY and the Gainward are both above 80 C in this scenario. It is worth noting that even 81.8 C is well within the safety limits of these chips, so if you do have good cooling in your case, you could probably achieve a quiet card with any of these, but if you are in an airflow restricted case, you might want to focus on the cards with the better coolers. Taking a quick look at overclocking, and there's not a whole lot to say here. The Gigabyte, which was the fastest card at stock, is also the fastest card when overclocked, and the Gainward, which is the slowest card at stock, is also the slowest card when overclocked, and pretty much everything else falls where you'd expect. So you should be good to make any decisions based off of the stock performance. Well, stock performance and money. And if you have been following NVIDIA card releases for the last couple years, the price and performance per dollar isn't really going to surprise you all that much. The ASUS RTX 4070 Super Tough does have the lowest value at $690, but it is very similar to the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super Aurorus Master at $700, and actually the Palit RTX 4070 Super Jetstream at $650. These are also the three fastest cards and have three of the best coolers, so for the most part, you could just get whatever one you can find at a better deal, though it is worth noting that the Gigabyte is worth $10 more than the ASUS. It is worth noting that even these three cards are a better value for money than the 4070 Ti at $750, so there's that. If you're looking for something a better value than the RTX 4070 at $540, you do have a few options. Both the Gainward and the PNY come in at the MSRP of $600, which does mean they are slightly less value than the vanilla RTX 4070 Super, but at least they're not charging more for being slower. The ASUS RTX 4070 Super Dual and the Zotac RTX 4070 Super Trinity are slightly better values at the same MSRP of $600, and both come with better coolers and more performance for the same money. This does put the value for dollar somewhere between an RTX 4060 and the 4060 Ti, which is not that great, but also, I guess, not too unexpected. There aren't any other new cards that are also faster while also being cheaper, so from that respect, it's the best card to get, I guess. But if you are looking for a similar level of performance, the RX 7800 XT does bring a lot to the table for $510. And over time, when prices do fall, the RTX 4070 Super will only grow in value, but for now, it still is the fastest card you can get for $600.